Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mission Whitetail podcast, episode number 25. Almost a year, brother. Mm-hmm. Next one will be a full year. To say we are running on fumes is an understatement. Hard work, hard play, right?
Yep.
We have been on the trade show circuit for quite a while. Did the Harrisburg show, followed up right by the Indianapolis show, followed up by the Dixie Deer Classic. You guys rolled back into town last night about 10:30.
Yep.
I rolled the trailer with all the booth into the garage this morning, went to the office, tried to get a workout in, caught up on email. I'm headed to the beach in a minute, so we're getting after it.
Yep.
Speaking of which, go ahead.
I was just saying, wide ass open.
Yes. Speaking of which, I haven't had a chance to follow up. How'd the last day at Dixie Deer Classic go?
It did really well, but it's the usual Sundays at the trade shows. You get a good rush for a couple hours, and then once 2:30, 3 o'clock rolls around, you may as well just start heading home.
It seems to be the case with all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something with Osseo that we have found. These show circuits are so awesome. We get to interact with guys all over the country. And, we had Big Rendell Eric up in Indiana. He's a trip, man, and a big buck killer. And it was cool hanging out with him. And he's got a lot of insight. He's actually worked with the tethered guys quite a bit and really enlightened us on different shows to attend, how to do the booth, stuff that we didn't know. So, anytime you can get somebody that knows the stuff in and out to be a consultant with you, that's a big help.
Yeah, he was in Iowa this past weekend while we were in Raleigh. He said they killed it there. It was awesome. So.
Yeah, so we will, guys that are in Iowa, Illinois type area, Wisconsin, we will be in Iowa next year for sure.
Yep.
And we're going to hit a bunch more shows next year, I think, to finish out this show season. We've got Columbus, Ohio coming up weekend after next. Then we've got Columbia, South Carolina, and then either Alabama or Georgia or vice versa.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Those are like Buckaramas, one in Alabama, one in Georgia. And so that's just kind of an update on our show schedule. But it's been fun. Got to interact with a lot of cool dudes, see a lot of big bucks, in Osseo, which is great. As you talk to guys, you kind of get a pattern. We get asked a lot of questions, at these shows. And one of the main things, I won't say the main thing, but something that sticks out in my brain that we get asked quite a bit is wind and thermals.
Yeah. That
seems to be an ongoing question, and it's a confusing one. Having done this whitetail stuff for 30 plus years, wind and thermals still get me.
Oh yeah.
And I think what we need to do is get like I don't know if you'd call it a thermal expert, but maybe, those guys that fly those microlight airplanes that rely on thermals and see if we can get somebody like that to come on the podcast and really explain thermals, dissect them and break it way down and see if we can equate that to hunting.
Yeah.
In a simplified version, with Mission Whitetail, always trying to provide value, always trying to learn and dive into things to help ourselves and other guys, get better. And so I'm adding some information here on the front because we've got some question and answers coming up. That's basically what this episode is. The question and answers this go round, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, just about all relate to Osseo gear. So, we're going to answer the questions we were asked. But, guys, I don't want this to seem like a plug for Osseo, but the simplest way to look at thermals in the mornings, as it starts to heat up, your thermals are going to rise.
Yeah.
And that can very much help you in certain areas. And there is a wind speed. Some guys say 5 miles an hour. Some guys say 10 miles an hour. I think it's closer to that 5 mile an hour where the thermals will actually override the wind.
Yeah.
You know, where they'll, you know, if they're going a certain way and the wind is going the other way, the thermals will actually win that battle if the wind direction. So what that means is you look at your weather map and you see you've got an east wind and it's 2 to 3 miles an hour, and you get in a spot in the afternoon and you drop some milkweed and it's going dead west because the slope is that way down, and it's falling down in the afternoons. That's a lot of guys have that dialed in. They understand it perfectly well. Some guys are going, what are you talking about right now?
Yeah, and I think it all is spot dependent too. You could be on a north-facing slope in the morning, and you're not getting as much sun on that side as you would on a south-facing slope. So you're banking on your thermals rising by 8 o'clock or whatever, and they're not, because you're not getting as much sun as if you're on the other side of the hill. And if you're sitting in the sun, they're already rising up. So that's another thing to think about as well.
And you know, when you go into your spot, you know, we're talking mornings right now, and you can be absolutely bulletproof if you're facing west and you're in a sunny tree, the backside of a sunny tree, and that sun hits that tree first. I mean, you're basically bulletproof right off the rip. And so, you know, that's something to keep in mind, even if you have 2 to 3 in the wrong direction. Now I'm going to get yelled at because somebody's going to go into their spot and blow out a big old buck. You said
this wasn't bulletproof at all.
Yes, I got busted, but
I shot myself. It wasn't bulletproof.
It's your fault. Again, this is a simplified. This will be an entire podcast that we'll get into thermals and wind direction.
Probably do a video too. We'll take some milkweed or something to a few of our spots.
Your spots. We're not going to any of my spots.
Never mind. Scratch the video.
I like the video, but let's go to somebody else's spots.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
We're going to Ohio. Let's go to some of Hayes' spots.
Yeah, there we go. We can throw ozonics at him. Drop ozonics. That fell right down there.
Drop ozonics. We can watch the milkweed and the ozonic stream. We can. I don't know if we'll be able to hear to talk with that machine running, but anyway.
Or breathe. Anyway.
Yeah. So afternoons, real quick. Let's hit on afternoons. That is where I have found I make my biggest mistake. Afternoons and thermals. When it starts to cool off in the afternoons, the thermals drop. And if you know, obviously you're in an elevated tree stand, they're going to come down, and you know, 5-6 mile an hour or 10 mile an hour wind, which we don't get a ton of here in South Carolina. We're normally that 3 to 5, and thermals is a real challenge. But the way you can look at it in your deer stand in the afternoons is how would water run? If a river came in off the top of my head, which way would the water run? And you're going to have canyons and drops and all sorts of things in front of you, and the way that water is going to run away from you is the way the thermals are going to fall. But again, a stiff wind will blow those the other way. So you just have to be real careful of that. You know, I try to hunt lower, like in terrain, on afternoons, or just completely stay out of a spot in the afternoons. But again, back on your first statement, it's all spot dependent.
Yeah.
Every spot's different. And then you throw in water and rivers and ponds, and then all of that changes, and every spot is different.
I don't know how many times I went in the afternoon and checked like 4 weather apps, and they all said the wind would be doing 5 mile an hour one way, and it's completely the opposite. And then the sun starts getting beneath the trees, and then it starts going the right way. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and that's part of the game. And you know, there is a science to thermals, but when you equate it to hunting, there's not an absolute science. And you're going to mess up, and you're going to get busted. Anybody that thinks they have it completely dialed and never get smelled and, you know, have it perfect, that's not accurate. everybody gets busted. Everybody's going to get smelled. But that is something to really pay attention to. And probably the most important thing outside of where you are hunting is understanding thermals and wind.
Yep. And egress and access.
Getting in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And, like I talked about at the beginning, we're going into a year of this, and we definitely want to dive into wind, thermals. I did a podcast in Harrisburg with the Exodus guys. Mm-hmm. Those guys have incredible content. Chad and Jake and Cameron, mm-hmm. incredible content, super passionate hunters. They've got the Exodus trail cameras, but outside of that, their media is really good, and there's a ton of educational stuff. And I loved sitting down and talking with them, and you can tell they understand and know the game.
Yeah, for sure.
They do a lot of public land stuff. That's something we'll hit on too this coming year is public versus private. I know we've talked about that before. One thing, being at these shows and interacting with hundreds and hundreds of people, apparently the public land has gotten super crowded. Yeah. And guys have planned their whole vacations to go out to public land spots and had 7-8 hunters every morning walk under their stands, and it ruins it for them.
Yep.
And so that's something that we can talk about, public land, trying to find permission spots or small leases. We can get into bedding, and we'll go through the buck in Kansas again. I've told that story a few times, but that's so important. The small overlooked places, we can talk about that. We'll have some good guests on again. We'll probably get Don Higgins back on again, Adam Hayes. We'll get some other guys. I'd love to have Rendell on one of these episodes, as long as he doesn't zombie dust us while he's
Was that you?
That's a story. What say you,
Yeah,
Rendell?
what say you? I asked him if he hit anybody with a "What say you" at the Iowa show. He said, "Oh, you know it."
Guys, if y'all aren't following Rendell, man, you need to check him out.
He's hilarious.
He is hilarious. He's about 6'13" height.
Yeah, he's a freaking monster.
But a super cool dude. All right, should we dive into these questions?
Yeah, let's send it.
All right, here we go. First question we got in was, Joe, what's your personal favorite feature of any single piece of Osseo gear clothing? And this came from Cade T. He emailed in this question. To me, that's really, really simple. I say it's simple, and then I get another one pops in my brain. Yeah. Okay, so obviously the camo pattern is my favorite thing with the whole. It's completely different than anything out there, and it works in our opinion and our testing better than any pattern on the planet for whitetail deer hunting out of trees. But my favorite feature, I guess, is the windproof liner that we use in our mid and late season, in the Sherpa stuff and the late season stuff.
Yep.
The fact that when it freezes, it doesn't crinkle.
Yep.
It's completely windproof. You can sit hours, and I can remember wearing stuff. I won't call out any names of other brands, but before we had our line, I can remember being in Alberta and sitting for 4 hours in sub 20 degree temperature. I was nice and warm, but I stood up to just draw my bow to see if I could draw my bow, and it sounded like you had a brown paper bag and we're just rattling it all together. So
you had a ton of confidence after that.
Yeah, I just stayed drawled. I just threw my bow for 45 minutes. But yeah, so that's my favorite feature. What say you, Kev?
Well, that was one that came to mind right off the rip, because you can run our Sherpa gear, and it's like half the bulk of like any other jacket out there, basically, because we can get away with having that thin jacket with that liner in there blocking all the wind. But I guess the other feature, my other favorite would be our double thigh zips on all of our pants. They're very, very accessible for when you're wearing a saddle. I don't think I've ever wore any other pants that you could get to those pockets while you're up in your saddle. And I'm always, I got my phone in one side, wind checker in the other side, or something like that, and it's very easy to get to. So that's one of my favorites. And then if you're a safety harness tree stand guy, we got the tethered slits in the back of everything, so you don't have to worry about doing any kind of crazy layering or anything bulking up around your collar. You just put it right through the back of everything.
Yep. Yeah, in the pocket design, when I was really looking at that, it wasn't necessarily for saddle hunting.
Yeah.
But it just worked out.
It just happened
to work out. And speaking of that, we are going to stick with this, saddle guys. We've got some pretty neat stuff coming for saddle guys that's going to be different than anything out there. And we've got some design changes to some collars and stuff that we'll be releasing April, May-ish that's going to be pretty neat. Question number 2 comes from Josh via email. It says, Joe, thank you for doing this, buddy. What's the most exotic and or breathtaking place you've ever traveled to hunt? Great question, Josh. I mean, obviously I can throw Turkey, the country of Turkey, in there.
Yeah.
The Mansour Mountains that Kevin and I went on together. This is when you were a whippersnapper, 20 years old. And I guess the mountains were insanely awesome. I mean, we got some of those pictures that are just incredible. We're about 50 miles from the Syria border, so it had a danger factor to it. The people were not super happy we were there. We got run out of a tea room by some guys. We had the military set up around us, a perimeter, and actually lay up a machine gun on its bipod. And our Turkish to Turkish translator, he spoke no English. Kevin nicknamed him Turkish to Turkish, so instead of Turkish to English, he spoke Turkish to Turkish. And I told Kevin to film the military, and I thought
he lost it.
He did not he was taking cover. He's like, no camera, no camera. He learned English really quick.
Please, no
camera, no camera. So that was a pretty exotic trip, and ranks up there. Mongolia, off the charts because they're still nomads there. That was really neat. I hunted some ibex over there. The Wrangell Mountains in Alaska, probably the most brutal, rough country I've ever been in, hunting on glaciers for Dall sheep. And, I mean, there was a crevasse or whatever you call them, like a ditch. But I looked down in it, and I couldn't see the bottom. So I broke off a piece of shale or whatever, some kind of rock, and dropped it in that crevasse, and I never heard it. I never heard it hit the bottom. So I actually took my rifle off my pack and put it across my back because I figured if I fell in it, there would possibly be able to wedge myself. And I got my inReach. I put it on my chest, so I could. That was up with Ultima Thule. Those guys are awesome. Some of the hardest guys on the planet. Jay Stanford, Don Martin, those guides up there, the Kloss family. They're Alaska dudes that are just bad to the bone. We've been on some good ones.
Yeah.
We've got something not quite as exotic, but we got some hunts coming up. We're going to go to Texas and do Axis turkey here pretty soon just to stay sharp with the bow and get some really good meat. And then we're going to go up to Saskatchewan, do a bear. I've got a good buddy up there that's a whitetail guy. And, you're always trying to stack the deck, and I want to go bear hunt with him and then do my scouting for whitetail while I'm there and plant some bugs and maybe give you some tips and ideas on how to set some stuff up for bow hunting. Because, the Milo Hansen buck came out of Saskatchewan, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next world record doesn't come out of Alberta or back in Saskatchewan, obviously Iowa. That's those are some of the hunts that we have coming up. Next, Joe, any plans for a woman's line at any point? My husband and I are avid hunters, and I want in on the Osseo action. Thank you for taking my question. This is emailed in from Kimberly. Kimberly, yes. The answer to that is yes. We do want to add a women's line, and guys get frustrated with not having tall sizes like longer inseams, big and tall. We get guys that are 5, 6X that want to know why we don't have giant sizes for them. And then ladies get frustrated as well. And the simple answer to that is we have minimums that we have to buy. So as a company in its infancy stages going into our 4th year, if we did get a women's line and we had a women's small, women's medium, women's large, XL, there are minimums in each one of those sizes. The market for lady hunters is not huge. There is a market there that we want to work with. We want to bring them into the Osseo family, but we're not at a place with our company yet where we can buy, every single piece of minimums of these different sizes and hold in inventory for 3, 4, 5 years, which is basically what it's going to take to move that inventory.
We can barely do that with our regular inventory right now. We're so small.
Yeah, we're selling out of stuff, and we're learning every year, and it's challenging, man. Clothing, we took 4 pair of XXX Sherpa bibs to Dixie Deer Classic, and we sold all 4 of them the first day. The first day that we were open, we sold them all. I mean, what are the chances of that? So how do you know? It's a learning curve. We're getting a lot better at it. So, yes, Kimberly, we do have a ladies line coming. Can I give you a timeline? Probably give us 2 to 3 years. I know that's a long way off, but that realistically is when something like that could come. We do have a lot of ladies hunting in Osseo. They're wearing our men's medium, and they like it. I realize it doesn't fit exactly right, but that's where we are with women's line.
Yep.
All right, question number 4 comes from Tim T. He sent it in by email. Did you ever have prior aspirations to start a hunting-related company before Osseo, or did it all just click and come together at once?
That's a good one.
Yep, that is a good one. So, Tim, I started an outfitting business right when I got out of college. I was a elk and mule deer guide in Oregon and waterfowl in Mississippi. And after that, I went to Africa for basically 7 years doing an apprenticeship to become a professional hunter. And I had an outfitting business called Sporting Adventures International. My plan was to guide in Africa for 6 months and then book safaris the other 6 months. And had a kid with Natalie, my wife, and somehow she is still my wife. And she got to throw the first pitch out yesterday.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Gamecock baseball game, so she's a saint. But I was gone for 3 months. I'd hit Tanzania, Zambia, and maybe Zimbabwe or Mozambique. Was gone for 90 days with clients in Africa guiding, and I got home, and she was with Jack at the airport, and she had tears in her eyes and said, "You got a decision to make. We're either going to have a family or you're going to do Africa, but I can't do this by myself."
Yeah.
So obviously for me, that was an absolute no-brainer, and I just became basically a travel agent for hunting. And we started doing Argentina. I would just broker everything out of our home office, and she actually came into the business and started helping me, and that was the healthiest thing we ever did. That doesn't work for all couples, but having her in the business really, really helped our relationship and me not traveling as much. She's cool with me going on these deer hunts for 5-10 days at a time and then checking back in, and now our son's older in college. But yeah, that is kind of the first hunting business. Next, I bought the Deer Hunter's Moon Guide. That was something that I bought with Adam Hayes. We bought that from Jeff Murray. It had about 1,500 customers when I bought it. And my plan that first year was to just shelf it. We bought it in August, and I was just going to hold it because it was so close to hunting season. I was just going to hold it and wait until the following year. Well, all of a sudden, somehow people started getting my Sporting Adventures number and were calling in like, "I need the Moon Guide. I need the Moon Guide." They had been buying it from Cabela's, and we closed it down there. And so I ended up printing like 1,000 of them that year and sold them all. And we actually grew it from 1,500 to 25,000 subscribers in 3 years. So that was a lot of hard work. And, you know, Adam having the following of guys that he has, and he's believed in it. And, you know, that overhead moon and underfoot moon, there is really something to that. Mm-hmm. We talk about it all the time. Weather and pressure trump everything. But if you have a really good day, that right weather, low pressure on your deer, all things equal, and you get an overhead moon, an afternoon sit, end of October, hold on to your bootstraps, because that it really does work, in my opinion, and what I have seen. And that was the second business in the outdoor space, and I ended up selling that to Adam. He runs it now and has absolutely grown it from where we had it and is doing really well with it. The apparel side of things is something I really got introduced to, sheep and goat hunting. When you know, the guy asked earlier about the exotic stuff, you know, I think on that turkey hunt, you had pretty generic, basic clothing.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
And boots as well. And, you know, I had the premium stuff.
Remember they lost like my whole bag for that trip. I had to borrow that one guy's stuff too. That sucked.
So what, doing these hunts, me and you both have understood the importance of and the difference between the cheap Walmart stuff and the really premium stuff that's out there. You know, when I got exposed to that, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. This is next level.
So much more comfortable.
Without a doubt. And so I transferred that into the whitetail space and started running that gear. And unfortunately, man, I realize there's been a ton of deer killed with the premium stuff that's out there now, but I was getting busted a ton. The camo pattern was just not there.
Yep. And
I said, you know, if there's ever an opportunity to start a premium line with these high quality fabrics, the waterproof membranes, the windproof stuff, the stuff that can lock you in your stand and you can sit for hours in brutal weather. If ever there's a way to come up with a camouflage pattern that makes sense, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go all in on it because I'm that convinced that really good quality clothing gives you an advantage. A really good quality camo pattern gives you an advantage. Now, you know, there's guys listening right now that hunt out of blue jeans, box stands, and flannel shirts or Carhartt jackets, and absolutely you can kill deer with any of that stuff. I don't debate it. But what good camo does is it gives you the advantage when moving. When you've sat there for 4 hours and you go to look over your left shoulder and that giant is standing there, you have a way better chance of getting by with that in good camo than you do with subpar camo.
Yeah, or you're hunting the bottom and they're coming off the ridge right here and they're getting eye level with you. Yeah, you got a way better advantage.
So that was the whole gap that I saw that needed to be filled. That's the gap that we filled, and 3 years in, we're starting to see guys that are like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, I feel bad. I almost feel bad at these shows talking about it because I sound so biased, but I almost get lazy in some of the trees that I do hanging hunts in now because I only do like 3 sticks. So I'm 15, 16 foot in the air, and half of them, they don't even have any cover on them. I'm like, yeah, that one will work. Trail's right there. And I've had so many mature does and deer just kind of look up at me and just go right back to doing what they're doing.
And we hear that story over and over and over again. Our buddy, our buddy Mike.
Yeah,
he's a trip.
Honcho.
Yeah, Mike Honcho. he calls all the time and gives really good feedback.
Yeah,
Let's
he
leave
does.
It at that.
Yeah.
Yep. So I've gotten super long-winded with that, but last thing on camo is the way I look at it. There is a reason that every ambush predator in nature is camouflage.
Yep.
There's a reason that is. I mean, if you can name an ambush predator that doesn't blend in his environment, ambush predator meaning something that hunts by itself, that only eats meat, that catches its prey with its teeth and claws, I'd be interested to know what ambush predator that is. Obviously, bears are black, brown, white. Then you get color phases, but they're more, is omnivore the right word? They eat berries and fruit, and they do catch stuff, but eat a lot of dead stuff. Anyway, so there's a reason why these ambush predators have camo, and if it's good enough for nature, it's absolutely good enough for me.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Let's see here. Question number 5: do you try and shed hunt at all during the off season? Thank you, Robert. Okay, so I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one. I am 100% anti-shed. I've said this on multiple podcasts, and I have said this on multiple TV shows, and it always gets bleeped out. Nobody has ever used my segment talking about this. I understand shed hunting. It's cool to find the antlers, and guys get super fired up about it. But here is my reasoning for not doing it. And, Kevin, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think you fit the same mold as I do here. The only thing that shed tells you is that he was alive the day he dropped his horns. I get hunting season is over, and so he made it. It tells you he made it through hunting season. But it doesn't tell you if the coyotes got him, if the winter killed him, if he got hit by a car, if he relocated. It doesn't tell you any of that. All it does is tell you he was alive when he dropped his sheds. I personally want, as soon as hunting season is over, want to leave those deer totally alone. I want them to relax. I don't want to run in there to their bedding area and jump them out of there and have them run in front of a Mack truck. I don't want to do any of that. So, guys, I get it, shed hunting. I know that I'm going to get some text messages and emails from people saying, man, why are you bashing shed? I'm not bashing shed hunting. If you want to shed hunt, shed hunt. I don't do it. I don't like it. I don't think it in any way helps me to kill my next deer. I don't think it does. I mean, he made it through hunting season, so I guess somebody could argue that. The deer made it through hunting season. But other than that, it does absolutely zero to help me kill that deer, and it can absolutely hurt me killing that deer. So I stay out. I don't shed hunt. So that's my take. You?
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. The only time I'm walking around this time of year is on bigger, like public land tracks that I'm not afraid to screw up, and I'm trying to learn these areas way before it even gets close to hunting season. But I'm never looking for sheds. I'm looking for deer sign, and that's it. I'm looking for deer sign, and then I'm getting out of there. I'm dropping some pins, checking the wind, depending on the time of day, and then leaving.
Yep.
And then all the properties that we have prior hunting experience with, I'm like you, I don't even go in there unless I got to go pull a camera out of there at the end of the season, but that's it. And
this is so funny. The next question tees right into what you just said and what we were talking about. It says, hi, Joe, how often do you actually get out and scout this time of year in preparation for 2023? Thank you. It comes from Thomas via email. So, Thomas, good question. My spots that I know, that I understand, I completely stay out of. As soon as hunting season is over, I am out of there because I know those properties like the back of my hand. Yeah. So what am I doing right now? We're getting into March, all new.
Yep.
New properties, and so guys are going to say, well, you go into a new property, that's no different than shed hunting. You're going to blow the animal out of there. He's going to get hit by a Mack truck. That is a possibility, but the flip side of that coin is if you don't know anything about it, you need to learn that property. And so the risk or the juice is worth the squeeze in that scenario. If I get a new property, okay, so here's an example. I'm going up to Ohio week after next for the Columbus show, and I'm going up like 3 or 4 days early because Adam and I are going to go look at a couple new potential leases.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another guy that's got that little 37-acre
Yeah.
tract that's surrounded by the Nature Conservancy that he told me I could hunt. And I'm going to go look at all those, and I'm going to walk the heck out of them and make all kind of notes and pick stand sites, pick funnels, decide if we want to maybe lease them. You know, that one spot is a permission piece. So, yes, the juice is worth the squeeze in that scenario. And I guess you could say in that scenario, if I'm looking around and I see a shed, I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that is an instance when it is worth it to me to go in February, March, April, and really look around and see what's going on. But my true spots, you know, I got, in the swamp here on the Congaree, I've got pictures after the season of 2 of the bucks that I want to hunt this coming year. Man, I'll go down there and put mineral out in mineral spots, but those are really good places that I can get right into. And, you know, it's not off the beaten path. I'm not walking through bedding cover. And other than that, that'll be all I do there.
Yep. Yeah, I got my new kind of main spot that I just pulled a few cameras out of a week or two ago, had some good bucks on it. And all I did, once I got that intel from those soaker cameras, all I did was go back and find multiple entrances how I can get in there for multiple wind directions. And I picked out a few trees and dropped a few pins and got out of there. Because now I know that there's at least one deer in there worth hunting. I just stay out of there. But like you were saying, when I find these new spots, you can do all the e-scouting and all that computer stuff that you want, but until you go walk it and see exactly what it looks like, where the drainages are and the little creeks and all that, not all of that shows up on a topo map. And you got to go walk it and really see what it looks like. So I'm a big proponent for that. I have to go take a walk and make as many notes as I can.
Well, it's interesting, that one spot you have where you left the camera, or maybe it's a text camera, whatever, you're consistently, throughout the entire year, you've consistently got pictures of deer and hogs coming through there.
So, so I walked that really good this past week and learned it really well and found even more sign that funnels them.
And so that is a good example, guys. If you find a spot like that, you're like, what is going on? You know, this looked like a good trail, and you know, a lot of times you put it on a trail or a scrape and you get very little. Very little action, and then boom, you find the magic spot, and it's constant game movement through there. Well, you need to figure out why that is, why that spot is better than everywhere else you put trail cameras, and then you can replicate that. It's a huge learning experience. These trail cameras have revolutionized things, and you know, guys argue they're ruining things, and I'm not going to get into an ethical debate, but there's a reason why hogs, deer, mature bucks, mature does, herds of does are coming through that one spot. And you have put another feather in your cap. Having learned that, and now when you go to another public spot you're going to know exactly what to look for.
And I broadcasted almost like a little web of, I had a nucleus with the cell cam and then a web of soaker cams, and I put all that data together from them soaking and then along with the cell cam, and I got some of the same deer, most all of them. They're hitting the same scrapes, but more frequently right over in this spot, closer to the cell cam. And then I got them hitting another handful of scrapes and a mile straight line from those ones. So I'm kind of piecing it all together. It's pretty neat.
It is really neat. It's an awesome strategy, and the process of that is really what fires us up, is putting all that together, and then you zip an arrow through one, and all that work is worth it. All right, let's see here. Hey, Joe, I was wondering if you guys could make a hat face mask combo. Would love to have one to add to the line. This came from Kurt Knives from Instagram. Hat face combo. I'm assuming that is the like camo hat that has the face mask built into the camo hat. I hadn't really had any plans for that. We do have, or we will, for not this season, but next year, we will have a full head net. It won't be built into face mask. Into a hat per se. I haven't gotten a lot of requests for that. It's interesting you say that. We obviously have all of our hoodies have hoods with a hoodie has a hood.
The built-in face mask.
You're kidding me. A hoodie has a hood.
Say.
Yeah. What say you, Kev? You think a hoodie has a hood? Has a built-in face mask. So and then we've got a neck gaiter guys use. So we've got 2 face coverings right now. We'll be adding a third. Maybe down the road. No plans right now to do that, but maybe down the road that's something that we could put out there. I know I've had some of those back in the days when I turkey hunted really hard.
Well, that thing, the head net deal that we're coming out with, that'll fit. You could wear a hat comfortably over top of that.
Of course.
So that might work for them.
Yeah, it wouldn't be necessarily built in, but it would be, a full face mask.
Plus, we got our neck gaiter that, you wear it around your neck and you could pull it up and then over the back of your hat. It's really comfortable.
Yes, concur. Okay, Kurt.
Or face gaiter, whatever it is.
All right. Hey, Joe, how about a kids line? It's so hard to find kids camo. This came from Brando from Instagram. Yeah, again, that's going to kind of go back to the other questions, the minimums. As we grow, we want to have all that, guys. We want to have big and tall. We want to have ladies. We want to have kids. Bear with us. The minimum quantities for all this stuff is not really in the budget, the first 4 or 5 years. But when we get to that point, absolutely we'll be adding it. I think to start with on the kids line, we'll get some smaller T-shirts and hats, maybe some small camo shirts, some smaller hats. That'll be pretty easy to add. But yes, kids line coming. Bear with us as we get there. But yes, kids line coming. Number 9, tips on finding out of the state hunting land, like how to narrow down a state to an area, say 100 miles. This comes from Mike on Facebook. Mike, I think we did an entire podcast on this early on. I cannot remember the episode, but I think we did a whole podcast on access and how you do that. Briefly, I think you need to talk to taxidermists in whatever state you're interested in going in. Tag states are difficult to put all your eggs into that basket because you might not get drawn. So non-tag states, Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri, places you can get tags over the counter. Then you can start calling up some taxidermists in different areas. Also, I look at, Don Higgins and I talked about this out at one of his master classes. You can look at soybean production, which is really the mineral in the soil. So I guess a mineral map would work as well. I'm not as familiar with that, but that's what Don was saying is if you take a transparency map of where the highest concentration of soybeans are produced, they go hand in hand with where the biggest bucks are killed. Yep. It's unbelievable how that happens. So you could narrow down there, and Don says it's not necessarily because the soybeans are produced there; it's because the soil with the correct mineral in those soils. So you could start with that, look at the giant soil production places. Once you figure out the area you want to go, then you got to get to work. Yep. That's going to local diners. That's talking to real estate agents. That's knocking on doors. That's using every possible resource that you can use. So figure out the area you want to hunt, and then you got to go to work. And there's no rocket science to that. It can take money. It's going to take money. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of work. So there's no rocket science to that. I can't say, this is the magic pill that gets you access to where a booner is going to be. I look for that every single day of the year, and they're hard to come by.
Very hard.
Hopefully that answers your question and gets you kind of headed in the right direction. And then the last question of the day is, how old were you when you first began hunting? This comes from David from Facebook. And I guess, Kevin, you and I both can answer that one. So I came from a really extensive, I guess, hunting family. My dad was addicted to it. My mom actually hunted. My sister hunted. My brother hunted. We had a RV camper thing on the hunting place that we had. My dad had a lease. He ended up also buying a farm, and every weekend we hunted. I mean, I can remember, I told this story on the Exodus podcast the other day. I can remember being in diapers or right out of diapers and waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning and being in a sleeping bag in the middle of the wilderness and not knowing where I was. And I would hear something above me, and I would look up, and my dad was in his tree stand with his rifle hunting, and he would drop a piece of candy down on my head, and I would just sit down there and eat candy while he got another 30 or 45 minutes in. So for me, dyed in the wool right out the womb. I'm sure my mom actually hunted with me in the womb. So, yes, I was introduced to hunting at a super early age. Great dad that loved it and, let me make my own mistakes. And basically at 12 years old, I had a little cut-off 243 that my son Jack also used growing up, and I'm hoping that his son will use. And he turned me loose. 12, have at it.
Yep.
I've given you the basics, and it's time for you to figure it out. And I really credit him with doing that. I have not been nearly as tough on Jack as you well know. He goes to Texas and Mexico and hunt clubs, and I've spoiled him rotten. And he's a good kid, but my dad really instilled the work ethic and getting out and figuring it out for myself. So that's my how I got started.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I was born into it, like you said, Joe. My grandfather on my dad's side had a hunting camp in Quebec, a fishing and hunting camp in Quebec, and one in Alaska. I was too young. He passed away by the time I was, I guess, old enough to really go on those type of trips. But yeah, I was born into it. I got my first 22 rifle on my 7th Christmas, and ever since then, the chipmunks, birds, squirrels were no more on the 10 acres that we lived on. It's probably still barren since I moved there.
Nuclear bomb.
Oh yeah, you couldn't. If you went under that porch in my backyard, you could probably scoop up 100 pounds of spent 22 press.
And you are quite a shot. I mean, if there's a bumblebee around our office or a black fly and you have a rubber band, his days or minutes are numbered.
If it launches a projectile, I'm pretty dangerous with it.
Yes, I would agree with that.
But yeah, I started off super young, had a background or a family with a very extensive hunting background, and then as soon as I got out of high school, I started working for one of the local, sporting goods stores or whatever. And then straight from there, I worked there like a year out of high school and started working from you and just upped the intensity of the hunting. And yeah, how would you like to have Joe Miles as a freaking whitetail or hunting mentor in general? So
good stuff. Well,
we're pretty dangerous.
Yeah. So that's kind of the whitetail, kind of how we grew up, and that doesn't mean that guys didn't grow up in hunting type families, are at a disadvantage. I mean, you look at Andy May.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. I mean, you look at him. He was on our last episode. We did 2 episodes with him. He's as good a big buck killer as there is in the country. And, he never grew up with it, but he got addicted to it, and he does what it takes to learn, and his attention to detail in all facets of the whitetail game are pretty much unmatched.
Yeah.
He's a good, solid dude. So, yeah, guys, that was kind of our questions for episode 25. Any we always finish with any other questions, concerns, ideas. We welcome them. We'll be going into episode 26, which will get us into a full year of doing this every other week. Kind of excited. It went by fast.
Yeah, really fast.
We'll have to figure out something to do kind of special for the next week. Maybe we do a highlight that's going to make you work.
Yeah.
Get some Andre stuff, get the GBRS stuff, get the Andy May, Adam Hayes, maybe pull segments from all of those. That's an idea. We may come up with a really good guest that we have, and then we'll be off and running for year number 2 of this. But we greatly appreciate the support. We had our marketing meeting the other day, and David said, to reach out to you guys. It apparently, I didn't know this. You probably did, Kevin. But if guys go in and give a review of the podcast, it really helps with the ranking and gets the podcast out to other guys. So if you get a chance, fellas, and can go on, what would it be like?
I guess
Spotify?
Spotify, iTunes, things like that. You can just do I think there's a star system. Give it 5 stars, and if you want to type in a comment, you can. Yeah,
apparently that really helps out with the rankings, and we're not trying to monetize this. We don't have any sponsors. We're just trying to provide value for ourselves and for the listeners. So if we can get it out to more people and those reviews help, guys, if you could do that, we'd greatly appreciate it. Have a good week, boys, and we'll be in touch next time.
Oh yeah, and guys, if you need any bow work, reach out to me or Joe, and we'll get you set up, and you can either swing it by the office or ship it down to me, and I'll get it knocked out for you pretty quick and get you shooting straight.
Yep, that's right. There's not a better bow tuner that I have run into in my days, so anybody that needs bow work, hit us up. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.